This is pure monosodium glutamate, aka MSG, the most misunderstood ingredient there is. What a shame though, because understanding what glutamate is and how to use it can help make you a much better home cook. And don't worry, I'm not just talking about MSG, the powdered stuff. I'm also talking about the 100% natural glutamate that can be found in all those foods that you are already eating today. And that's exactly what I want to show you in this video. Are you ready for the umami tsunami? Walk with me. So let's start with this. According to science, MSG is completely fine to eat in moderation. I mean, some people really are sensitive to MSG, don't get me wrong, but it's more of like an allergic reaction maybe, because there are no adverse or bad effects actually proven to come from MSG on a larger scale, and that is why it's legal. So I'm sure all of you have a budget Chinese takeaway nearby, right? I remember when I was younger, I'd go inside and people would point at the little bowl of MSG they always have there and say, "Ooh, it's MSG, you shouldn't eat that, it's gonna kill you, it's really bad, it causes cancer." But if MSG is not actually bad for you, then why does it have such a bad reputation? So here's the short story. Sometime in the 60s, there was a doctor who noticed that he would get sick every time he went to a Chinese restaurant. He thought it might have something to do with the MSG, and he wrote an article about it. Some very fishy scientific studies followed to confirm his theory, and this whole thing just became this urban myth called Chinese restaurant syndrome. A lot of people actually claim that racism plays a role here as well. One thing is for sure though, MSG is a very common way to make low quality foods taste good, or let's say taste better. And it's also a very cheap and efficient way to do so. Cheers guys. I mean, it's not good. The reason why I think MSG has such a bad reputation is because of what science calls confounding factors. Your MSG food might be bad for you, but it's not the MSG's fault. Don't blame it on the G. Glutamate, which is the main component of MSG, can actually be found all over the place in nature, in plants, in animals, yes, even in you and me. As humans, we actually make first contact with glutamate in breast milk, which is packed with this stuff. I think that says a lot. And when glutamate hits our taste buds, we register it as this very full-mouthed, lingering and savory sensation. Most of you will probably know this feeling from eating meat or seafood. And next to salty, sweet, sour and bitter, this has actually been scientifically accepted to be the fifth taste that we as humans have. Now, we don't have a name for this sensation in our tongues, but in China or Japan, the concept of this fifth taste has been around for a long time. And in recent years, the whole world sort of started going crazy about this stuff and borrowing the Japanese name for it, umami. You might have heard of it. Humans across the board love umami. It's what makes our favorite foods so delicious. So now you're probably saying, okay, I get it. The naturally occurring glutamate, that's fine to eat, I guess. But this chemical powdered stuff, that's gotta be bad for you, right? Right? Well, let's break it down. First of all, we have to thank this dude, Kikunai Ikeda, for MSG, my hero. It was in 1908 in Japan and Ikeda loved his wife's seaweed broth. And he felt the umami, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. But being a chemist, he did some magic and ended up being the first person to extract glutamate and to turn it into this crystalline powder that would just make things taste better. And today, well, Ajinomoto, which is by the way still the original name Ikeda gave this stuff, is being extracted from fermented sugarcane or tapioca root. And let me just restate this. Chemically, the glutamate in MSG is the exact same stuff you find in nature. The United States FDA says it's fine to eat, and even the European Union, which is known to be a pain in the ass when it comes to regulation, says it's fine to eat, but only in limited quantity. What? So this is half a liter of water. According to the European Union, up to 10 grams of MSG per kilogram of food is safe to eat. So here I have 2.5 grams of MSG, that's half the permitted amount of MSG for this half liter of water. And then here I have another 2.5 grams, which is the second half. And then here I have an extra 5 grams for good measure. We're going over the regulatory norm. Don't do this at home. And be safe. Speaking of which, safety first. So step number 1. I'm gonna add 2.5 grams of MSG to this half liter of water. No smell. Somehow I doubt this is gonna have any flavor whatsoever. Whoa! No, it does. Whoa, it does. Never had MSG on its own like that. It's really weird because it takes a couple of seconds until you feel it. It kind of tastes like chicken broth. I feel it all over my mouth, mostly in the back, and it stays for a really long time. More. This is another 2.5 grams. We're gonna go up to the legal limit the European Union permits. This, you guys, is a barely legal MSG. Let's try it. It's weird. And it really makes you salivate. Like, it feels like I'm drinking in my mouth. So the thing is, a lot of people taste pure MSG like this, and then they will tell you it tastes really weird, so it must be bad. But then, to be honest, this is salt. If I just tried a little bit of salt or just pure salty water, that's not a pleasant experience. MSG is supposed to work in combination with other flavors. That's why they call it a flavor enhancer. Which brings me to an idea. Just a pinch of salt. Holy shit, this is proof. MSG tastes like shit on its own, but MSG combined with even a simple flavor such as just salt, it makes it so much more pleasant. It feels like MSG and salt are this match made in heaven, almost like, you know, something sweet and something tangy. That sweet and sour combo is just classic, and so is this one. But in moderation and in combination with other flavors, especially with salt, MSG can really work wonders. And I know there are some other concerns people have about MSG. For example, some people say it dulls your taste buds, you stop feeling a lot of flavor. And I think there's probably something to that, but it's just like with any other taste or substance. You eat a lot of salty or spicy food, you get desensitized. You need more of the stuff to feel it. And you know that powdered stuff is just so convenient and easy to overuse that I believe you need to put in a little bit of effort to find that sweet spot when it comes to using MSG in your food. Only use it to make good food better. Don't use it to make bad food okay. But if you're still not convinced and you don't want to use the magic powder itself in your food, I got you covered. Here are the top foods that contain a whole shitload of 100% natural umami boosters to up your home cooking game. Now this might be a basic one, but all of these are packed with umami compounds. This is where roasts, stews, and soups get that deep savory taste from. But the glutamate score is particularly high for two items. Cured meats. You can leverage this by, for example, adding a bit of chorizo to your scrambled eggs, or a little bit of cured ham in your salads, like a green salad or a potato salad. Oh yeah, and then there's bacon. Anchovies. Now don't be scared, anchovies and other salted fish and seafood are actually so packed with umami that even just adding a tiny little bit will already be totally enough, and you will not actually taste the fishiness itself. The world famous Caesar salad recipe, for example, calls for anchovies for the dressing, and that is its secret sauce. You can try adding one salted anchovy or half of one into your next salad dressing or curry and see for yourself. It works wonders. Let's go back to the roots. Remember, seaweed is what kicked this whole MSG thing off, and that is for a reason. You can try roughly cutting up a piece of kombu and then soaking it in water overnight, and you will get this deep, vegan-friendly umami base that you can use in all sorts of soups, stews, or braises. So I was a little bit surprised, but quite a few veggies actually contain pretty decent amounts of glutamate. And what's really interesting is that they work particularly great in combination with meaty umami compounds. And this is a great trick to keep in mind while cooking. Like just, for example, I would never make a pork dumpling without adding a little bit of cabbage to it. And now I know why, because the cabbage will actually make the meat taste even more like meat. It's a flavor enhancer. However, in the vegetable category, tomatoes are the clear winner, especially ripe ones. And again, we have this thing that in combination with meat, you will feel even more of that umami. This is exactly the reason why tomato sauce is so freaking awesome and why it's such a popular choice to go with meats. But guys, you can step up your tomato game even further. Now, dried tomatoes are just pure, natural nuggets of umami goodness. And if you're like me, personally, I actually do not like dried tomatoes, but what I love are half-dried tomatoes. I'm gonna share my half-dried tomato recipe with my Patreon supporters this week, because you guys are just the best. But generally speaking, just drop your dried tomatoes into salads, serve them as a little side dish with like some mozzarella, for example, or put them in your pasta. I mean, the possibilities are literally endless. So cheese is generally pretty great, but one more reason to love it is certainly that it's a great source of umami, especially that sweet Parmigiano. That's why your spaghetti carbonara or your cacio e pepe is such a simple and yet such a satisfying experience. So you can go ahead and make those, or just put cheese on anything else, because when has that ever not been good? Soy sauce, fish sauce, miso, bean pastes, kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles. All of these fermented products are full of umami. And yes, they're also pretty salty, but do you remember how these two things work together? The high glutamate content actually helps you to get a more satisfying flavor experience while using less salt overall, if that makes any sense. Play around with these things. Try them in stews, stir fries, sauces, as a side dish, as a topping. Anything. Just eat more fermented foods, please. Like, have you ever tried miso honey glazed meat? No? Well, then you haven't lived. All mushrooms will have some umami. Apparently the darker the better, but the undisputed winner is the dried shiitake mushroom. You can soak it in some room temperature water for a couple of hours and then use both the rehydrated shiitake mushroom as well as the liquid in cooking. Or you can even just straight up grind the dried mushroom into a powder like this and use it whenever you want to keep things on the drier side. It's not quite like MSG, but it gets close, with a little bit of added shiitake taste. And finally, there is Marmite. So if you don't know what Marmite is, it's a natural yeast extract, and you can get it in English supermarkets or sometimes for some reason in Asian supermarkets, and it's pure umami crack. And again, as with most things today, you can add a little bit of it to your food to enhance the flavor, to boost the umami. Like for example, I've read on Serious Eats that adding a little bit of Marmite into your burger meat will make your burgers taste even more like meat. But in some countries, people actually like to eat this stuff straight up on toast. So I've only tried this stuff, I think, once in my life before, many years ago, and it was pretty horrible. So naturally, I'm gonna try this now. Yeah, no, I'm not sure about this. Oh wow, it's thick. It looks tasty, a little bit like chocolate actually. Now let's spread this on my toast. Marmite toast, first time in 15 years? In case I don't make it, subscribe to my channel and use MSG responsibly, kids. Okay, here we go. Ah! Oh! Not good. This thing's... Seriously guys, I'm not acting this. It's atrocious. This is a crime.